You want people with the mindset of hunger, people who want to push boundaries, people who want to grow. Uh, Someone asked me, what is my mantra? What is the phrase I use for my personal brand? And I said, it is do nothing ordinary. Break the boundaries, move the boundaries, do nothing ordinary. And
Love it.
if you have that sort of mindset, you would want to push. It doesn't matter whether the company is really the greatest or not, you want to push. You want to make things model. You don't want to just go in and clock in every day. My job is to
Yeah.
negotiate and issue contracts. I think that's a very boring way to view procurement.
Thank you so much for joining another edition of the Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Segun Abati. Now, Segun is a procurement supply chain expert, at least a few decades in there, and with experience across FMCGs and multiple markets with global spend that he's been responsible for in the billions of dollars. Very proud of an MBA from Manchester, and he loves to mentor young up and coming leaders in supply chain and procurement. Shagun, thanks so much for joining today.
My pleasure to be here, Sean. Great to meet with you. Yeah. And hello, everyone.
Thank you. I'm so delighted because there's so many people that are making waves, that are making changes, that are leading changes in this digital procurement AI space. And this usually means that you're making things happen that, maybe 5 years ago would have been impossible, and today they're just hard. What would you add to that? And what do you see really working and making a difference?
Well, first of all, once again, pleasure to be here. I think the first thing is, as a procurement professional, you've got to think beyond the old ways of doing things. The world is changing and we can't afford to be left behind. And the idea is it's changing so fast, like we've seen in the last few years where things happened and uh, we need to be ready. We need to be ready. We don't know what the next change is, but and so we need to be agile and ready. And it's about having, first of all, the mindset that things are changing and we've got to change, preferably ahead of them.
Yeah.
Not behind them, preferably ahead. We'd rather dictate the pace than allow them to be reactive. And it starts with, first of all, that mindset. And once you have that mindset, the next thing is what are the tools? Or what can we use to do it? And of course, AI and digitalization comes in very handy. Yeah. But it starts with the mindset. And then once you have the mindset, AI and digitalization and a couple of other things that I hope we will discuss will kick in. Yeah.
What I love about that is people always talk about the people, process, and technology, and how the technology is not really the hard part. The process isn't too bad, but the people can be tricky. And I think you honed in on the right part because just like, somebody asked Richard Branson, how do you have so many happy employees at your airline? And they said, well, we hire happy people. And I think Southwest did the same thing. And this idea of hiring for the right mindset, so much of the rest is so much easier. And that mindset is really the first unlock, is that growth mindset. It's that readiness for change. And I think that's one of the first things that really stands in the way of some teams that try to innovate is that it's that old kind of culture eats
Absolutely.
strategy for breakfast. And if the culture is, well, we're always going to
Absolutely.
do it the way we've done it,
Absolutely.
you're
I
stuck.
think you just said the phrase I was going to make, I was going to say, which is culture, it's strategy for breakfast. So no matter how wonderful your strategy is, you might have the best players. The culture of a business, the mindset of the business will either amplify it or, make whatever strategy you have wither away. But if you have the mindset, you will break through. I mean, not quite the most relevant example, but let me say this. If you have somebody close to you locked up behind a wall and there's fire there, uh, you would do anything. Because at that point, your mindset goes away from what you normally do every day to, I've got to do this. It's a complete change of mindset versus, oh, there's $100 across the room there. There's no door, but if you can get it, if you break it, it's fine. You see the mindset to getting $100 across from the next room and the mindset of I want to make it. happen, all of a sudden it's different. It's, and that is the importance of mindset. It's the
Yeah.
same person, it's just a different perspective to what can and will be done. Yeah,
It's a very different set of questions that go into it, isn't it? One of them is, well, maybe that'd be interesting. And the other one is,
exactly,
this needs to happen.
exactly,
What needs to be
exactly.
true?
You want people with the mindset of hunger, people who want to push boundaries, people who want to grow. Uh, Someone asked me, what is my mantra? What is the phrase I use for my personal brand? And I said, it is do nothing ordinary. Break the boundaries, move the boundaries, do nothing ordinary. And if you have that
Love
sort
it.
of mindset, you would want to push. It doesn't matter whether the company is rated the greatest or not, you want to push. You want to make things model. You don't want to just go in and clock in every day. My job is to negotiate and issue contracts. I think that's a very
Yeah.
boring way to view procurement.
I think
Yes, sir.
everybody who's watching would agree with you. I love the idea that there's innovation inherent in the right mindset because it means that you're no longer handcuffed to the way it used to be. And I think that's part of something that you were talking about of helping people go beyond logistics and procurement. Can you share a little bit more
Okay,
what you
so
mean
to,
by
to
that?
give a bit of perspective, I'd like to start with what traditional procurement has been in the supply chain and logistics space, which is basically, oh, you have a warehouse contract coming up for renewal, go get some from procurement to go renegotiate that. Or we need a new carrier, go negotiate the services for that, which is the traditional way, right? And for me, the new way is to go beyond that to the point that as procurement, you get a seat at the most senior level in the company. And for you to get a seat at the most senior level in the company, talking with the CFO, CEO, is to be able to bring what is relevant for that level. And for them, what is key for them? They report numbers every quarter and every year. They report P&L, and today they report sustainability. They want to report growth. Now, where does procurement fit in those three? Let's start with growth, profitability. Procurement can be a channel for innovation. Right. Traditionally, in companies, you have the R&D department, a couple of people with light switched on brains that bring up ideas and the company works. But today, if you look at the opportunity and the volume of innovation that is happening outside the business, it is amazing. And who controls the door, who's got the controls to the window, is procurement. And so we can actually harvest innovations from suppliers, from people, and bring them into the business. And if we had more time, I'll go into how that can be done in details. And once you're doing that, you're not just negotiating contracts, you are now beginning to drive growth, something that the CEO and CFO are interested in because your innovation is not just about improving processes, it's about helping to support the business growth. The second part, ESG, sustainability. Now, of course, when you talk about environmental impact, there is a scope one, there's a scope two, and there's a scope three, where procurement plays a big role. We might be doing all you can to be green as a company, but are your suppliers supporting that? Are your suppliers doing that as well? Because if they are not, then it's difficult to say you're green. Yeah, it's really difficult to say you're green.
Yeah, you're
Exactly.
not really in the
And
same boat
who,
then, are
who
you?
who controls that? Once again, it's procurement. So if I can prove that I am influencing my suppliers, new and old, to fall in line with the company's ESG policies, then that's something the board wants to hear. Yeah. And then of course we talked about innovation, talked about growth. Remind me, what was the third one I was talking about? Innovation, growth, profit.
I think it's a great way to segue into what I think needs to be the billboard for procurement and supply chain
Yes,
everywhere
exactly,
is value beyond
exactly.
savings.
Uh, so if you want to talk about value beyond saving, we talked about innovation, we talked about ESG, but let me go a bit deeper and to give you an example of how it could work. So we have suppliers, and these guys think just like we think. I mean, they have their own R&D, they have stuff that they're doing. Now, imagine having a program where you are constantly challenging, incumbent suppliers as well as as well as new suppliers to say, guys, what is happening out there in your world? What are you doing? And continuously speaking to them, understanding them, and then going to pitch this to the business. Right? Going to pitch to the business. Oh, by the way, I found this supplier who's able to do one, two, three, and that would significantly transform the way we sell or the way we move goods and services. And that automatically starts driving growth in the business, profits, efficiencies and all that. Then you talk about in the ESG space. Once again, scope three, not just scope three emissions, but also the social aspect. So you as a company, you don't use on the age labor, but are your suppliers doing that? Are you constantly checking them to ensure that things are not going wrong in your supply chain? And who is better empowered to do that? It is procurement. And so we got to go beyond just saying, I renewed the contract, I renegotiated the contract, I delivered savings, to saying, I am bringing value into the business to drive profit, to drive and to drive innovation, growth, as well as to drive the sustainability agenda. And that is at the top level. And of course, even within the business, the stakeholders need to understand what value we bring. And it's about understanding them, working with them. And I'll give you a bit of an example, once again, in the logistics procurement space. So typically in the past, you would go and renegotiate a new contract. But today, we sit with the business and look at our logistics network and ask ourselves questions. You ask yourself questions. Are our warehouses in the right places? Do we have the right number of warehouses? Are there too many? And how do we do that? It is by doing network reviews, and this is where procurement comes in because we are able to provide data to show the business to say, you have a warehouse in Copenhagen, you have another one in Poznan, right? You have another one in Rome, for example. And the question is that the best way to serve Europe? You don't know, but procurement can provide benchmark data to show you this is your cost to serve, this is your uh, this is your end-to-end cost, and this is how quickly you can serve the market. And then the business is able to make a decision and decide, you know what, maybe we should close Copenhagen and move it to Munich, or maybe we should move it to Rijeka in Croatia. But the business on their own can't do that. We need procurement to be able to do that sort of thing. And that brings to a point where we talk about another value for procurement, which is in the benchmark space where you go talk to peers in the FMCG space and understand what they're doing and learn and bring that learning to the business. And with that learning, the business can transform. We can transform our supply network. We can ask, oh, what are we doing to get things faster? And I'll give you a quick example. I won't mention the names of the company. So we had there was a company I was talking to one of our suppliers, and they were talking about how quickly they could move from RFP to go live in a warehouse contract. And I said, "Oh, we've been doing it, and the fastest we've done it, I think, is really fast. It's world class. It's 8 weeks." And then the other party starts laughing like, "Why? Why are you laughing?" It's like 8 weeks. That is slow. We can do it in 6 weeks. We can do it in 4 weeks. Like you go from RFP to go live in a warehouse contract in 6 weeks. And I said, yes, absolutely. If I was just sitting in my office doing my work, I would never know that that was possible. But because I'm collaborating with my peers, I'm able to bring that information to the business and say, by the way, this is what is happening. Do you want to continue doing RFP to go live in 6 months where people are doing it in weeks? And then the question is,
Yeah.
how? Like, good, follow me, and I'll talk you to my suppliers and we talk about it. That is the value that procurement can bring.
Yeah, it's this opportunity, and you described it as a catalyst, and it's such a beautiful term because it's that catalyst of bringing in the art of the possible. Because the way things used to be, well, it used to take 6 months to make any kind of a change like that, and now it can be done in weeks. So if we think about the massive step function change that's happening in business and technology, and even at the just the pace that things are moving, there's a whole set of new things that in many cases somebody hadn't even imagined was possible before. And this catalyst, I'd love, tell me more about this catalyst concept because I think that's really important for more people to hear about what your vision is and what you see good looking like there.
Okay, so like I said earlier, the first thing is has to be the mindset that you want to grow and you want to continue to transform. Number two is you, as a business, as a function within your business, procurement, and indeed the business are not omniscience. They don't know everything about what is to know. Yeah, like someone said, a mentor of mine said, what you know is not all there is to know. And once you accept that what you know is not all there is to know, then you start asking questions. And then the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, and then the more you want to know. And you get that by breaking boundaries, by talking to people, by going beyond, oh, I saved £1 million, to what about if I improve your efficiency by 30%, like in the example of going from RFP to go live in weeks rather than months? How do you do that? If we were just sitting down in silo, we wouldn't know what is happening out there. What I'd recommend, and what I've seen with businesses that are at the cutting edge, is to have a procurement innovation program. And when I say innovation program, I'm talking about procurement, I'm talking about supply innovation program, where procurement is constantly scouting for innovations. And one of the things that I tell people is if you have that program, one of the key metrics is to have what we call no-brainer return on investment. Because if you look at it, you have a business, right? You've done your budget for the year. All of a sudden, your procurement, your CEO says, oh, I just found something that is innovative, but it's going to cost you $2 million. You need to pay this and like. It's not in my budget. I'm not going to do it. I don't have time for that. I understand it, but it's too big to just consider all of a sudden. So in as much as you look at the big innovations, you've also got to look at what we call no-brainer ROI, where there are innovations that are small, but they're quick to implement. They probably come in as a service, so you're not looking for capex that you never budgeted for in the first place, and they have good return on investment that without punching the calculator, without calling the finance manager to look at it like, oh my God, this makes sense, right? So if you have Yes,
NBROI.
exactly. No brainer ROI. And you take that to the business and say, wow, this is going to cost us less than $50,000. I know we didn't have it in the budget, but I think somewhere we can squeeze out $50,000 or $100,000 to do this because it is clear. Of course, there's room for the big ones, but you've got to be able to find those small ones that also make impact. So that area, I would say, is really important. The other area is to find within the network existing network, supplier network, and external network suppliers who can help you constantly review uh, your network, your supply chain network, your supply network to say what is the most feasible place to be? How do you become resilient? How do you prepare for tariff changes? How do you prepare for disruptions? What if there's a disruption here? What would happen? And you start looking for those type of suppliers that can help you, and that is in one area. The other area is you start because you have partners, you have peers, and you have connections outside. You might find out that you may not have the money for certain ESG programs or green logistics, but there are people who are already doing this. And as procurement, we can go and find them and piggy bank on them and say, hey, by the way, you're doing this. If we give you our volume, you can we can get a benefit. Your volume becomes bigger. You're green, we're green, everybody's happy. But it takes going beyond the day-to-day sourcing to get all of that. It takes having that eye to look outside for these type of things, and not just once in a while. You're constantly looking for them. It has to become part of your DNA of the procurement function. That is critical to making procurement transform the business.
That growth mindset paired with the disciplined action, the consistency of scanning, of looking, of seeking out, and putting yourself in that position to go find those new opportunities, those new ideas. That is true in so much of
Absolutely.
life because it's, if you're looking for a job, don't sit at home. If you are looking for new ideas, get out there and go look for them because they don't always come and show up in your inbox and say, hey, here it is. And if they do, chances are they've been filtered out by a
Absolutely.
spam filter. and they should have been.
Absolutely. It's about, and that's why I said they need to create a program, because once the programs become something that people do, and you probably need somebody to be responsible for driving that culture within the function to run that program where everybody's checking. At the end of the year, you'd ask, okay, how many new innovations have we harvested as a company? And you start setting targets like that for your business and for your function to say, oh, this year we want to deploy 3 or 4, whatever number it is, new innovations. We want to have we want to have 3 or 4, whatever number you think is comfortable, proof of concepts. And over the next 5 years, through procurement, we want to be able to deploy 15, 20, 30 new innovations that have specific impact on the business. It's got to become part of the KPI within procurement.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think that absolute innovation becoming part of the KPI and that value beyond savings is such a beautiful thing. Segun, thank you so much for taking some time this afternoon to join us and to share your wisdom. Really appreciate you joining us.
Been a pleasure to be your guest, and I hope we get to do this again soon.
I'd love that. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks for everyone watching. This has been another edition of The Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye.